Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick, a live stream for today, Wednesday, July 10th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is kind of how today's live stream will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. After that, we'll get moved over to RotoWire, talk through the weather report, any name that does have a double-digit chance of rain or higher, and looks pretty good weather-wise overall today. And then we'll be looking through some of those starting lineups, any thing that is kind of notable to take away from them, maybe some guys that are cheap that are starting that we didn't expect to start, anything else like that. After that, we'll get moved over to FanDuel, talk about my core 5 picks for today. It's going to be one pitcher, 4 hitters. It's going to be based on a combination of past performance versus their respective opponent, as well as some recent history. And then after that, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet and talk through my top GPP teams to stack for tonight's slate overall. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS for tonight's slate, feel free to drop them down in the live chat, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. If you're watching this video on replay, feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'll get back to you as quickly as possible as well. But without further ado, we'll go over the recap of yesterday's picks. So at the pitcher position, we went with Logan Gilbert. He was $10,200, got to 45 points, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate. At catcher, ultimately went with at catcher, we went with William Contreras at $3,200. Got to 12.7, so did give him a hit as well since he did get over the double-digit threshold. And then we got some guys that didn't really pan out as well for us yesterday. So Bryce Harang at second base, $3,200. Unfortunately, 0 for yesterday, so he was a mess. 0 for 4 on the day, which, looked like a pretty good matchup versus Quinn Priester. Priester actually pitched really well coming off the IL, and, we weren't sure how deep he was going to pitch in that game. He didn't really have the best history versus the Brewers in the past, but that just kind of gives you a little bit of insight into MLB. On any given slate, anything can kind of happen. So just keep that in mind as we are playing out, this slate or any other slate in the future. And then we had JJ Bleday, was really banking on the previous history. He's been in that big slump as of late. Kind of looks like he continued that slump last night at $2,800, was 0 for 5. So just kind of unfortunate there. The last member of the initial core pick, if you do remember, was Jorge Soler, and he was $3,000, had some pretty decent history versus Yusei Kikuchi in the past. He was unfortunately scratched last night due to illness, which was a pretty late scratch, and was just kind of unfortunate there, if we're being completely honest. I did say you could either swap over to Christian Yelich or Matt Chapman. If you were swapping over to Christian Yelich, not a long time to do so, since we did get that news on Jorge Soler a little bit later on. So do apologize for that. Well, I can't really even apologize for it. It's just kind of when the news did come out overall. I posted it pretty much as soon as I found out as well. But if you went the Christian Yelich route, $4,000, got to 15 points, he was a hit. And then if you went the Matt Chapman route, who did have decent history versus Yusei Kikuchi in the past as well, he was $3,200. Unfortunately, went 0 for 4 yesterday and ended up with 0 points. So a very hit or miss day overall. If you had some other good plays alongside the core, you probably had a pretty decent day still. And then if you had some kind of lackluster plays, probably was a little bit tougher day to cash overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk through the weather report and some of those lineups for tonight's slate overall. So let me get that screen up here as we're going through it. And like I said, it's going to be a really good day in terms of weather for baseball today. I think the only game that does have a double-digit chance of rain or higher for the 9-game main slate is going to be the New York Mets out in New York. 11% chance of rain there versus the Nationals, which, like I said, it's a really good sign, especially considering the fact that we had like 2 or 3 games postponed yesterday. I think it was 2 in total. Don't quote me on that, though. So that kind of upside of better weather is something that we always look for. In terms of the lineups, going to go through them kind of quickly here one by one, but we'll start off with the Dodgers and the Phillies. For the Dodgers, the biggest thing here is no Will Smith tonight. Austin Barnes will be doing the catching. Everything else, you could argue, like no Gavin Lux, Chris Taylor's in the starting lineup at second base, but nothing too crazy otherwise. And then for the Phillies side, looks pretty standard-ish at this point in time, minus no Bryce Harper at first base tonight. He did recently return from the IL. Alec Boehm's playing first base. Amundo Sosa's playing third base. Both have relatively decent but limited history versus Gavin Stone. And then we move down to the Oakland A's. Relatively standard lineup for the Oakland A's tonight. On the Boston Red Sox side, not really too much that we can say here. Jamie Westbrook's going to get the start at second base, batting 8th, and then Romy Gonzalez is going to be playing first base tonight as the right-handed hitter in that platoon for them. And then we move over to the Colorado Rockies. So Jake Cave's getting the start and batting 6th in right field. And then Sam Hilliard is going to play center field and bat 9th for the Rockies tonight. So the one kind of thing here is no Charlie Blackmon tonight. I think he's a little bit banged up. Don't quote me on that, though. And then on the red side, we got Santiago Espinal playing second base, hitting 9th. Jonathan India will be DHing tonight. He was a late scratch yesterday as well, so keep an eye on him. Just make sure that doesn't change. Austin Slater recently did join the team, and he's batting 6th and playing center field for them tonight. And then we move over to the Nationals. Looks like a relatively standard lineup for them. Juan Yepez playing first base, Vargas at third base, though. So those would probably be the two highlights there. And then for the New York Mets, I'd say relatively standard lineup for what their lineup is at this point in time, going against left-handed pitcher and Patrick Corbin. So no Jeff McNeil tonight. Jose Iglesias will get the start at second base. And then we keep moving down to the Miami Marlins would be the next one up on the main slate. And it's kind of a standard-ish lineup, I guess you could say. You know, Jake Berger's playing first base. Josh Bell is at DH. Emmanuel Rivera at third base. Jonah Brad's getting the start at second base tonight. Xavier Edwards has been playing a lot of games now at this point in time. Starting at shortstop, Ali Sanchez will get the start at catcher. So I think that's probably the most notable thing. Dane Myers getting the start in right field. So bottom half of that lineup, not looking too strong overall. It looks like a really good sign for Framber Valdez just in general. And then we're going to keep moving over, or I should say we'll move over to the other side with Houston Astros. So Joey Loperfido getting the start in right field. So that just means no Chas McCormick tonight. Otherwise, relatively standard lineup at this point in time for this Houston Astros team. And then we move down to the Diamondbacks. Just looking through this one, I don't think I've really seen this one yet. Geraldo Perdomo does return to the starting lineup, playing shortstop, batting 9th. Otherwise, relatively standard lineup for them just in general. And then I do believe we had the Cardinals. Oh, excuse me. The Cardinals are not on the main slate. I made a note of it when I seen their starting lineup that Brandon Crawford was going to be starting no Mason Wynn in that second game if you're following that game between the Cardinals and the Royals, which is the second half of doubleheader. So we don't have to worry about that for the main slate. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks for tonight's slate overall. So once again, the core picks, it's going to be 5 picks in total, 1 pitcher, 4 hitters. This is going to be based on a combination of past performance versus their respective opponent, as well as some recent history. So we're going to start off at the pitcher position with Nick Pivetta. He is $9,000. Got some pretty good history versus Oakland A's in the past. He is averaging about 30 fantasy points per game on the season. And if we look at what he's done in versus the Oakland A's in the past, 30 points versus them this season, 67 and 39 in 2023. So, you know, at the very least out of those 3 starts, we're getting 30 points, which is what he's averaging on the season. I think he has that upside of doing better tonight. He does have that really good history versus the Oakland A's in the past. 4 wins on the season, ERA just north of 4 at 4.06, looking to get that under 4 with the start. And I think he has a good chance of getting in there tonight. And then with that being said, we're going to move down to our hitters. So we have Marcus Semien at second base, $3,400, averaging just over 10 fantasy points per game. Going against Griffin Canning tonight, he is 6 for 24 with 2 home runs versus him in his career. He has at least 1 hit in 4 out of his last 5 games. Only 1 multi-hit game during that time span, so maybe that's kind of the one downside to him. 1 home run during that time span as well, but 3 double-digit performances, so definitely do like his upside tonight. On the season in totality, he's got a .232 average, 12 home runs, 50 RBIs, once again averaging over 10 fantasy points per game at $3,400. Looks like we got a couple new people joining in the stream now, so if you guys do have any questions regarding tonight's slate whatsoever, feel free to drop them in the live chat. Otherwise, feel free to just say hi or anything else like that. Definitely do appreciate you checking it out. And with that being said, we're going to get down to our next core pick, and that is going to be Francisco Lindor at $3,500, shortstop for the New York Mets, going against the Washington Nationals tonight, averaging just under 12 fantasy points per game. Patrick Corbin on the mound tonight. Patrick Corbin has not been very good the last few years now. Francisco Lindor has got some pretty decent history versus him in the past, 13 for 41 with 3 home runs versus Patrick Corbin. He has at least 1 hit in 3 out of his last 4 games. 2 of those games have been multi-hit games. 1 home run during that time span as well. 2 double-digit performances, but 3 games of at least 9 fantasy points or higher. So relatively safe floor for Francisco Lindor tonight overall. And then we're going to keep moving down. And the next guy on our list is going to be the cover buy of our thumbnail today. It's Brandon Nimmo, batting second for the New York Mets, outfielder, $3,300, averaging over 12 fantasy points per game on the season. He has quietly had a really strong start to the year. And in his career as Patrick Corbin, 11 for 40 with 1 home run. So decent history there at that. He's on a modest 4-game hitting streak. 2 of those games have been multi-hit games, 2 home runs during that time span, and all 4 games have been double-digit performances. And like I said, off to a pretty strong start to the year. He's got a 252 average. Average, maybe we'd like to be a little bit higher, but he's a guy that gets on base at a really good clip just in general. 15 home runs, 58 RBIs for a guy that's hitting towards that top of the lineup is actually pretty good just in general. And then over 12 fantasy points per game at $3,300. Definitely do like his upside tonight versus Patrick Corbin. Obviously, you got a little bit of lefty on there, but not really too worried about that for tonight's slate overall. And then last but not least, we're going to go with the young buck and Jackson Chourio, $2,800 for the Milwaukee Brewers. He is averaging just over 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He's been batting leadoff for the Brewers as of late. And if we look at what he's done in his young career versus versus Martin Perez, he is 2 for 3 with 1 home run versus him. And what he's done as of late has been really good. 13 out of his last 14 games, he has at least 1 hit. Only 4 multi-hit games during that time span, so that's a little bit on the downside, but guy that can hit for some pop, guy that can steal base, he's definitely a guy that can steal a base as well. And during that time span, he's got 2 home runs, 8 double-digit performances at 10 games of 9 fantasy points or higher, so definitely do like the upside of him tonight. Has a relatively safe floor at the same time as well, and a matchup that he has done very well against early on in his young career earlier this season. And if we look at what he's done in totality on the season, 247 average, 9 home runs, 35 RBIs. Once again, a guy that can steal a base here and there as well. So like the upside at $2,800 and does offer a little bit of a safe floor as the same time as well. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do currently have listed, you'll have exactly $13,000 remaining, just over $3,200 remaining per player. So a good amount left over, whether you want to go with a balance build, whether you want to pay up for a couple different players, pay down at a couple of value spots. I think there's going to be some decent value plays out there for tonight's slate overall, just in general. If you're looking for a guy that is the flat minimum, a guy that is a little bit risky, he's on the cheat sheet as well. Anthony Rendon, $2,000. Going against the Texas Rangers. He's actually had a little bit of success versus Michael Lorenzen, but a guy that hasn't played a lot of games since signing that long contract, that big contract with the Los Angeles Angels, But for the flat minimum, probably hitting leadoff for them once again, definitely does warrant a little bit of ownership there at the same time as well. But with that being said, we're going to get off this page. We'll get over to my cheat sheet and talk through my top GPP teams to stack for tonight's slate overall. So let me bring this up here as we're talking through it. And right here. So the teams that I do have in terms of my top GPP teams to stack for tonight, we're going to start off with the New York Mets. This is a very easy one. They have hit Patrick Corbin really well throughout his career, or throughout their most recent part of his career at the very least. But a guy that is not in my core picks, Pete Alonso, has 5 career home runs, a really good batting average versus Patrick Corbin. The only reason he's not in my core picks tonight is because he's been kind of struggling as of late. And after we saw JJ Bleday yesterday, a little bit more hesitant, but I still probably be playing Pete Alonso in a couple different lineups tonight, especially those ones where I'm stacking in the Mets just in general. You can play him. You can play Brandon Nimmo, you can play Francisco Lindor, you can play Harrison Bader. Pretty much anybody, if they're wearing a Mets uniform tonight, they're in the starting lineup, you can probably play them versus Patrick Corbin. And then we have the Houston Astros going against Brian Hoying and kind of the Miami bullpen tonight. It's not sure how far he's going to pitch into this game. There's not really much history there versus him, just in general. The one guy that does have a hit versus him is Mauricio Dubon, who is eligible at pretty much every position you can imagine for the Houston Astros tonight. So it could be a useful kind of like value play today if you want to go that direction, but definitely do have some interest in these Astros tonight. I think probably my favorite one is going to be Alex Bregman. If you want to get to some Yordan Alvarez, you can definitely do that. He's been having a couple of down games with that knee that's been bugging him as of late, though. And then we move over to Texas Rangers. Going against Griffin Canning, they have hit him pretty well in the past, whether it is Odolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, a couple other ones here and there as well. So definitely do like the upside of that Rangers lineup tonight. If Robbie Grossman ultimately ends up in that starting lineup, he's kind of a sneaky play, 6 for 14 with 1 home run versus Griffin Canning. But I do believe he hasn't been playing quite as much as of late. And then last but not least, we have the Atlanta Braves, and they are going against Slade Ciccone for the Arizona Diamondbacks. No career history there versus him in the past. I believe the only guy that did really have history versus him, Eddie Rosario, who I believe they picked up on waivers from the Nationals very recently. But other than that, no history versus Slate of the Arizona Diamondbacks in the past. So like the upside that could be there, there's a little bit of downside, a little bit of risk there at the same time as well. But that's kind of what I do have in terms of the top GPP stacks for tonight's slate overall. Once again, looks like we have a couple of other people kind of joining now. Kind of ran through my big spiel for the day, whether it is the recap, the looking at the lineups, as well as the weather report, my core picks, and the top GPP stacks. Definitely do appreciate you joining. Probably reround it a little bit to that if you want to get into a little bit more depth of that. If you guys have any other specific questions related to MLB DFS for tonight's slate, be sure to let me know. I'll probably hang out here for about a minute and a half more or so. But if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your MLB DFS, or I should say helping you with your DFS. Currently have MLB DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the live stream, 4:30 Central Time, 5:30 Eastern Time. If there is a slate that does have the earlier slate, unfortunately, we'll not be able to do that with the new job that I did start recently. So working there till about 3 o'clock Central Time. These slates that start 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, stuff like that makes it a little bit more difficult. But other than that, Monday through Friday, we'll be here with the live stream. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you that has checked this out. If you are interested in CFL DFS whatsoever on DraftKings, feel free to check out my CFL DFS video, which will be dropping later tonight or early tomorrow morning. If you're brand new to that, definitely feel free to check it out, try it out. You can throw as little as a dime on it and see what happens, but a lot of good content to be had there as well. And then with that being said, if you are brand new to, and then with that being said, as always, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, feel free to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you are a brand new user on any one of those three sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match. And I know recently they started doing on your first three deposits up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's in the live chat of this video, whether it's down in the comments, or whether it's a direct message over on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. You can also call it X now, I guess. Nowadays is probably what most people are calling it, but I'm still going to call it Twitter for the foreseeable future. And then with that being said, can't talk right now. And then with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have in terms of today's live stream. If you have any other additional questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them in the live chat pretty quickly here. Otherwise, feel free to drop them in the comment section of the replay of this video, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then kind of the other starting lineups that we have yet to see so far, I'll try to get them down in that comment section as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's live stream. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you that did come out to support this. If you're watching live, definitely do appreciate it. If you're watching on replay, appreciate that as well. Once again, if you have not done so already, feel free to give this video a like, or feel free to give this live stream, I should say, a like. If you have yet to subscribe to the channel, feel free to subscribe as well if you enjoy the content that I am putting out. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's live stream. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you that has come to support this, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. Hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.